Hello, I am Bharati Patel, Scientist B in the Division of Forest Ecology and Climate Change, Institute of Forest Biodiversity, Hyderabad. The institute is under the Indian Council of Forestry Research and Education, Dehradun. The topic of my talk is integrating functional ecology for management of forested landscapes. Tropical forests are Earth's most complex biome. The reasons are there are large number of species and diversity in features and structures present in these forests, such as extensive root system, large stem and canopy, rough bark, lianas, multi-layered canopy, etc. All these features make it complex system, making it difficult to assess the number and abundance of species, because of which it is difficult to monitor the species and plan proper conservation measures. Also, it is difficult to assess the effectiveness of the conservation measures. While these structural complexities are problems, they can also be solutions in the form of structure-based indicators of biodiversity. These are proven as effective and trackable indicators for natural and managed forests. Examples of such structure-based indicators are forest connectivity, for example, the canopy connectivity, corridors, etc., stand heterogeneity such as plants of various sizes and forms, presence of water bodies, rocky outcrops, etc. Stand complexity like multi-layered canopy and stratified distribution of plants and animals on trees and canopy levels. Canop ecosystem functions, which refer to the role of these species and structures. The reasons for using these structures as indicators is these structures are highly correlated with species presence and abundances. One of the most common indicator used in tropics at present is canopy density, which is monitored as the change or shift in dense, moderate, and open forest cover. According to the Rivet hypothesis, recovery of degraded forest depends upon the quantity and quality of propagules available in the area. Therefore, the features in and around the forest are also important. Available studies mostly give information about the impact of disturbance on physical structures and species richness, but clarity over the impact on ecosystem functions is meager. As there are so many direct and indirect causes of deforestation and degradation, without proper knowledge of how these factors influence forest and landscapes are thinned out functionally, it is very difficult to predict that what shall be the state of landscape in future and what should be the suitable interventions. To functionally improve the landscape, recovery of important mutualistic and specialized interaction is important, and along with the recovery of other species, these also should be focused. For example, most of the tropical trees are adapted to zoochory. In degraded forests, the dispersers are reduced. But still, some small frugivores like birds and bats might help to recover it in the long term. In such areas, habitat and site characteristics such as microhabitats, refuges, and perch sites are important, and availability of these structures increase the probability of seed rain. In this way, recovery of degraded forested landscapes depend upon the nature and intensity of disturbance, identification of sites based on these disturbance regimes, response of the species to these disturbance regimes, the history of land use, landscape characteristics of nearby areas, resilience of the ecosystem, flow of ecosystem processes in that area, resource requirement of existing species, relationship between these existing species, and changes in abundance of species with time. If these guiding factors are in expected state, it indicates that ecosystem is functional and recovery is good, and it might end up in a system close to its original state. If the intensity of disturbance is high, then recovery will be more complicated, requiring more investment of money as well as time. The succession trajectories depend upon both the area and quality of forest in proximity and the quality and quantity of propagules. Also, disproportionate loss of some species might reduce the effectiveness of both natural and assisted recovery. Since local factors act as filters of species as well as ecological processes, the knowledge of functional classification of species is helpful to understand and monitor the recovery of ecological processes. The concept that improving the number of species will improve ecosystem functions may not be generalized because using species richness as indicators has its own limitations. It requires to improve the number of functionally linked interactions along with the number of species, especially when the functions are linked to specific characteristics or traits of the species. According to the ecosystem function approach, characteristics of landscapes affect functions of the species, their response to disturbance, and their combination for long-term monitoring of biodiversity and passive restoration will be a good approach. Some of these indicators are listed here. As we can see that the taxa-based indicators are integrated within structure-based indicators. And apart from these, other parameters related to productivity of ecosystem, biodiversity measures, disturbance regime, protective functions of the forest, carbon sequestration are also potential indicators. When we talk about the ecosystem approach, all these parameters are important. However, the list presented here is just indicative, and there are many other parameters that might be used depending upon the objective and the area and the type of knowledge required. To conclude, we can say that ecological functions are the processes behind population, community, and ecological dynamics and are determined by the interspecific interaction. The loss of interactions occur at much faster rate than the species extinctions, or both might move along each other. This knowledge helps to identify the minimum of the complexity that might be restored to rehabilitate the ecosystem or the ecosystem requires to restore itself. Many experimental research evidence that positive interactions are critical to the success and recovery of ecosystems, and these should be paid attention to. To make ecosystem-oriented conservation policies relevant to the community structure and potential functional links should be integrated within the such as improved planting designs, context-dependent planting designs. Measuring the functional diversity can give better inference about the ecosystem's response to changes than species richness. Functional diversity measures should be included in conservation and restoration decision making. Ecosystem approach can help to maintain the biodiversity and ecosystem processes to prevent decline in biodiversity and develop conservation strategies. At the end, I would like to thank you for listening to my talk, and Dr. Perod Balakrishnan, scientist in Kerala Forest Research Institute, Thrissur, Kerala, who has been guiding me to understand the structure-based indicators and their importance in conservation of biodiversity and forested landscape. Thank you.